What's up, guys? It's Elliot here, and today I'm bringing you another guide. In fact, this is going to be another one of those, not really advanced, it's going to be a 2.0 guide. So I'm basically going to be talking about Reinhardt. And I figured I should talk about him again because all the changes that have happened in Overwatch with two new heroes, with Orisa coming out soon, and Sombra obviously being released, and the fact that it's like another season and a half from the last guide. And I figured it's just about time for me to update you on Reinhardt and all the changes and everything. So I'm going to be giving you 3 keys to good Reinhardt play, especially because everybody's asking for a Reinhardt, and that's the thing. Everybody asks for a Reinhardt in games, and when Orisa comes out, it's probably not going to be a difference in that they're going to want a Reinhardt and Orisa. He's just so necessary for teams, and even if you can't play him well, I'm going to be giving you these 3 tips to play him a lot better so you can blow people's expectations. And speaking of that, you don't need to be able to land God pins to blow their expectations. You just need to play a quality, consistent Reinhardt that will get them going. So the first tip that's really helpful is make sure you protect your team. And that's something that you'd think was obvious, but people sometimes don't do that. Even if your team isn't in the best position, you should always be jumping in front of them. And that's something that's important, is you got to trust your team. It's a team game, you got to trust them. You got to trust they're going to get kills, and you got to get in front of them with your huge-ass 2,000 HP barrier. Get in front of them and let them poke away at the enemy, and it's insanely important. Because if you're just on your own, yeah, your shield can protect you, but you're not getting any value of like damage on them. They're just firing into your shield, and yeah, you may be in a decent position on the point, but if you're not protecting your team, they're just going to get picked and you're going to lose the fight. So being in front of your team is insanely important. Obviously, you should try to help your team get in the right positions by like encouraging them to move that way, but being in front of them is insanely important. And I know a popular strat is getting in front of Bastion. It was at the beginning of Season 4. He's not broken anymore. But trying to like get your Reinhardt in front of a high value like target to like defend them, like a turret, a Bastion, even just protecting your soldier is insanely important. But most of the time, it's going to be you protecting maybe your soldier, maybe some healers, and just making sure the people behind you are safe, because that's the main important thing, is keeping your shield up in front of them to protect them. And speaking of keeping your shield up, that's the second tip, and that is to be vocal, especially with your shield, because when your shield's up, you need to be vocal. And as Reinhardt, you have the luxury to be standing in front of everything. You're the first line. You can see directly in front of you. You can see what the enemy team's doing, and you need to make sure you're being vocal about that. Make sure you're telling your team where they're going. If you're in a choke and the enemy's going left or right or something, make sure to tell your team so they can adjust their fire. If you're attacking and you see like a Widow on the high ground, tell your team they've got a Widow on the high ground, and make sure you keep your shield up in that case. But that's important stuff to let your team know what's going on. Be vocal, be the leader that your character is obviously trying to be in the game. So obviously, now that you're like leading, you want to be vocal about your shield more than anything. You want to tell your team what your shield's at and when you're lowering it. So typically when I'm playing Ryan, I let my team know about every 500, except I tell them about my shield's at halfway at about 1,000. I tell them when it's at 500, and between 200 and 300, I tell my team my shield's going down, because you don't want to tell them right when it's at 0, because you could get picked, and that's just really ineffective. You want to tell them just before, so they have a second or two to react, recover, and doing that will save your team from like some bad picks, and it'll let your Zarya get ready to maybe bubble you if she wants to get charged. And speaking of that, if your Zarya wants to bubble you for stuff, let your team know when you're throwing your fire strikes. It takes a second or two for that animation, and being able to like let your team just maybe seek cover for a second and have your Zarya get some charge or something is really, really good. And in that case, if the D.Va wanted to put up defense matrix to cover you or something, if you had a D.Va instead while you're throwing fire strike, it's insanely important. And the last thing with communication is telling your team when you're going in. Tell your team when you're about to charge, because yes, if you have a Zarya, she can bubble you when you're going in, but it mostly helps if you have like a Lucio, he can speed boost. If you got a Genji or like a D.Va or a Winston, they can go in right with you, and it's insanely good to coordinate all that. So basically, being vocal about your shield when you're using your abilities to start a fight is insanely important. And obviously, Earth Shatter is a key to Reinhardt, but I'm not including that in this tip. I'm including that as his third and final tip, is getting value out of your Earth Shatter. And you don't need to look for the 5-man hero shatter. All you need to do is get a couple key people down and make sure you're telling your team. You don't need to tell your team right when you hit the animation button, but what you need to do is you need to tell your team before the fight. Be like, I have Earth Shatter, I'm looking to use it, so your team is aware that you have it and that you're going to use it. So then when they're fighting, when they see you drop your shield and shatter, they're ready to fire and stuff. I typically would give them another warning right when you're doing it, because the animation does take a second. But you have to trust yourself when you shatter to go in and try to get the pin, fire strike, do some damage. But coordinating that with your team is insanely important, because sometimes you won't have to waste another ult. If you get a good earth shatter, you won't have to use like a soldier ult to hit them. They're already down, and that means you can save it for a snowball. So stuff like that is insanely important, and I highly recommend just coordinating, getting good value out of your shatter. And again, you don't need to look for the 5-man. If you can just get down their 2 healers, or like maybe like they have a soldier and an Ana, if you knock them both down, that's insanely important, because you can get those picks really easily, and then suddenly they're down their core of their team. And actually, the last thing, I did say 3 tips here, is kind of like a bonus one. Just make sure when you're playing Ryan and the other team is on Ryan, you need to pay attention, because obviously you don't want to waste your shatter into him, because he can block it. You don't want to get pinned all the time. That's really important. And you want to win the fire strike battle. A lot of playing Ryan is winning the shield battle and beating other person's Ryan. And obviously the better you are, the more consistently you can do that. But just making sure you don't get outplayed by their Ryan is insanely important. Because if you can play at his level or a little bit better than him, your team will have a huge advantage, because their shield will go down. You could pin him, you can shatter him down, and then suddenly they don't have their shield to block all your damage. So using these tips is really kind of, they all help you win that shield battle. So finally, I figured I would just reiterate all the synergies and counters with Ryan and everything. And obviously the new one would be, with the counter, would be Sombra. I don't know if she'll be in the meta in any time in Season 4 with Orisa coming out and everything. But she can obviously get rid of your shield, and that's insanely annoying with a hack or EMP. But you have to be alert. You have to make sure you're still, you're still in the front, taking damage, because you do have 500 HP. So if Sombra comes in, I don't know if Ryan will go down in popularity, but it's something that's definitely be worth noting. But obviously with synergies, just anyone who can stand behind him. You don't always have to take Ryan. I would say, if your team is like Tracer Genji, there's not really anyone standing behind you. And in that case, a lot of times I will use Winston, as you've probably seen some videos on my channel. But if you have someone behind you, anyone who wants to stand behind the shield and poke away, like McCree or Soldier, or like a Widow or Hanzo, really important to pick Ryan and synergize. And that's just the main thing, just protecting your team. And obviously the most obvious one is Ana. She has been getting nerfed, but you're a huge target. When you take damage, let her heal you, because trust your Ana, because it's a way to charge her ult. She can't really miss you. And it's like the most obvious synergy, the Ana-Ryan combo. Nano is huge on you too. And that's the main thing. So, hope you guys enjoyed this guide. I hope you can play Reinhardt a little bit better. I hope you can adapt your playstyle when you're playing Ryan a little bit, just to protect your team. It is a shift if you're used to DPS or something. But Ryan's a really important hero, and he's really good, and you can get immense value out of him by just doing these simple tips in this guide. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.